I want to put on record my anger and frustration, which many in this House share, at the collapse of this case, particularly the dropping of the spying charges against Christopher Cash and Christopher Berry and the resulting collapse of their trial, which had been due to go ahead this very month. And I welcome Mr Speaker's guidance on looking at how to improve member security. We as members have a personal responsibility too. We shouldn't forget to protect ourselves, our fellow members and our staff from such foreign interference. And I have to say that includes in our hiring practices and vetting of staff who can work in this building, which has not been often mentioned in this debate. But I want to mainly warn of the dangers of some of the rhetoric that has been used today in this case. Now, of course, it's the job of His Majesty's opposition to probe, to challenge and obviously to scrutinise the government. Yet what's happened in this case is something that goes way beyond that, something that risks harming us all, just as spying on our Parliament harms us all. What I'm talking about are the repeated, unsubstantiated and scurrilous suggestions that any minister or special advisor in this government interfered or intervened in the independent decision-making of the CPS. In his article in The Times on October the 15th, the Shadow Home Secretary accused the government of deliberately choosing to collapse the case. And I quote, "It is clear the government chose to deliberately submit inadequate evidence that led to 2 alleged spies getting off scot-free." He went on, "They must now also explain who was guiding Matt Collins in preparing his evidence." That is an appalling accusation to make with zero evidence and an insult to the professional integrity of the Deputy National Security Advisor, and I hope he withdraws it. But sadly, the Shadow Home Secretary was not alone. The Leader of the Opposition told the BBC on October 13, "This looks like a deliberate decision to collapse the case and curry favour with the regime in China." She went on, "I suspect that ministers have decided that closer economic ties with China were more important than due process and our national security." Just look at those words. Looks like. Suspect. Not a shred of evidence, only insinuation. That's not the language of a Prime Minister in waiting. Yet, as the Security Minister has made clear, it was an entirely independent decision by the CPS to discontinue the case, and they've confirmed that it came under no outside pressure to do so. As for that Whitehall meeting on September the 1st, referenced by the opposition today in this motion, crucially, Mr Collins said yesterday there had been, quotes, "at least 4 lawyers in the room who ensured that there was no discussion about the evidence in this case." When it comes to Ukraine, this House has maintained a proud cross-party consensus in helping President Zelensky stand up to Putin. Sadly, that consensus is not at times helped by reform, whose Putin apologists are indeed Moscow's useful idiots of the 21st century.
Shameful. Yeah.
But we need to maintain a similar cross-party consensus in fighting against Chinese threats. It's vitally important. I will give way.
Wayne, you're making a good case about cross-party consideration about the threats of what China is. I wanted to ask a very simple question, because I've asked in here before. Do you think China should be in the Foreign Influence Registration Scheme, as is Russia? Yes or no?
It's a matter for ministers to decide. I'm not privy to all the information that would require that determination. But it's vitally important for our own national security and for our own national interest that we maintain a similar consensus as we have on Ukraine on the threats, challenges and opportunities posed by China. We should all stand firm in this House on issues of national security, human rights and on the threats China poses clearly to our economy, our industrial secrets, our intellectual property, our democracy and, yes, our cyberspace. And we should also recognise it's important the UK engages with China where it is in our hard-headed national interest and mutual interest to do so, from climate change to global health to trade. That's why the opposition in government had a policy of protect, align and engage. There's that word, engage. How different really is that from our own compete, challenge and cooperate? I know this place can often thrive on political knockabout and trying to seize on your opponent's perceived weakness. But in accusing one's political opponents of somehow being enemies of the people and plotting non-existent cover-ups, the only beneficiaries are our real enemies abroad.